I'm Joni with Looking at Careers with Joni, and I'm here today with Sean from Liquid IV. Liquid IV is a product that helps dehydration for all sorts of reasons for sports and older people, and just those of us who tend to get dehydrated. So, Sean, tell us about what you do and a little bit about your company.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Sean Levine. What I do, I'm actually the vice president at Liquid IV, the vice president of Live Mission. And I'll get into that a little bit more. But in general, my responsibilities oversees all of our innovation, all our global sustainability programs, as well as our give back channels. And Liquid IV is actually it's a really interesting business itself, and the model of the business is interesting. But primarily, what Liquid IV is, it's a hydration multiplier, which is great tasting.
It
It's
is great tasting. I've
it's an
had it.
electrolyte. Yeah, it's and you know what's so interesting is it's an electrolyte drink mix, if anything, which is powered by what we call our cellular transport technology. And what that basically means is it has a delivery system that is your glucose sodium based transport system. So when you actually go to the hospital and you're um, for whatever reason you're staying the night, the first things they do is they hook you up to probably an IV. And the IV bag essentially is providing your body with um, water, as well as your electrolytes. They'll have sodium in there and glucose. The reason they do that is just to maintain your body, or at least replenish your body, what generally is losing a lot of those basic fluids and basic ingredients that keeps you alive. And then they move on. So what Liquid IV is, or following the idea of this life-saving blend that was really thoughtfully brought to the attention in the world by the World Health Organization back in the 60s. Uh, and they had to find something to help people who had severe dehydration. They didn't have access to a lot of hospitals or tents where they could actually put people using IV drops or any bags. So they had to come up with something that was quick, efficient, that could be oral, um, consumed orally versus through any intravenous process. And so that's how they came up with the oral rehydration solution, which again is simply using two compounds plus water that goes into your bloodstream very quickly. And so that efficiency was established to save lives. Many years later, Pedialyte jumped in. They developed their own version of that to help children, primarily very young children, who were always in either throwing things up or diarrhea, everything else. Basically, they were losing a lot of their fluids naturally. And so parents had to make sure that their little children were constantly stabilized through their hydration. And so Pedialyte was a really good source for that. Again, it wasn't simply delivering more water to the child, it was delivering water plus those electrolytes and glucose to help with the organs. And so taking that model, but then pushing forward, Liquid IV really looked at the entire model itself and realized that 75% of every active or just every American lives in a state of dehydration throughout the day. And that's simply because maybe you're just not drinking enough water. You're had your third cup of coffee, which is a diuretic, and you're just forgetting about that part of it, which will impact your day. So you may go through mild or moderate dehydration, and not a big deal, except that you go through those moments of being a little bit foggy, you're not focused, your skin feels a little drawn. Depending on your age and physiology, it could impact you faster, quicker, or less so. But at the end of the day, until you bring your body back up to a natural state of hydration, it does have an impact, a negative one at that. And when you realize that out in the world today, we when we don't see it in front of us, we do tend to forget. We're either not solving that issue for us, or we're grabbing perhaps something that is high sugar, or taking another beverage that may not really replenish the organs of the primary minerals that you need. And so when we created Liquid IV, it was really with the intention to solve this problem, but do it in a scientific way, following a very specific science formula, which is the ORS formula, twisting it around a little bit. When I say twisting it is, we know that water follows sodium ions and it does harness your glucose, goes into the bloodstream very quickly. So we know that part. And that actually hydrates you faster and more efficiently than just water alone. What we looked at even further was there was an opportunity to piggyback on the sodium and the water to bring other nutrients into the body. So just imagine, not only are you hydrating, replenishing your electrolytes and glucose, but we're also adding a bevy of vitamins, or in some circumstances, zinc, or energy or micronutrients that your body needs for other things, whether it's a restful sleep, meaning that we bring in some melatonin or some valerian root along with that, or energy, natural energies like guayusa and matcha, or even very clean coffee berries. So anything else that your body needs from a micronutrient, the great thing is that if it gets piggybacked or delivered with this delivery system, it actually will be absorbed faster and quicker into your bloodstream. So the benefit is all of your organs, and the speed at which all of this happens makes you a healthier person, and you'll be hydrated simultaneously. So it's a quick and simple way of actually solving a problem that has been rooted in everything that we do every single day. And I think that's like the very high level, very short version, if I could, just of exactly what Liquid IV is as a company, or basically what our product is.
And I think the simplest way that you mentioned to me before was it goes into your system quickly, almost like an IV in the hospital. So your system absorbs it faster than most of the other products that are on the market.
Very, very quickly, absolutely, and that's why it works. We're very focused and around the absolute science behind it. So exactly measured, and the ratios of these ingredients in order for it to be effective and equal to an IV. So as we've always said from day one, is just try it, you'll feel the difference, and that's why you'll come back and reuse it again. It is very intentional, and so it does not just contain 3 times the electrolytes of a traditional sports drinks and 5 times the essential vitamins, but it is the infusion of higher absorption of water faster, more rapidly into your system. I think that's really the key focal point.
And I think the other thing I'd like for you to mention, just because I think it's great, is how Liquid IV gives back to the world and to local communities. So, can you talk a little bit about what you guys do?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, one of our biggest, I, what we started as a company is that we've always wanted to be a purpose-led business. So the model from day one was that it wasn't about building a business around profit. It was building a business around purpose. So we knew right away we had a product, which is an oral rehydration product, that is considered one of the 5 most valuable or used products when there is a disaster, humanitarian event, any of those things. They're so required globally, that we knew if we had something, we had an obligation to be able to go and give back. We come from a generation where I think we think about others a lot more, where we think about our planet and we think about impact. So we channeled all of that into a mission-driven business. We call that our North Star, or our true north. What we've done is currently set up a system where for every product that is sold, we donate to those in need. And we have this idea that changing the world starts with a little ripple effect. And where we were just a startup just a few years ago and helping a small group of people in Haiti, that was one of our first endeavors, and also some of the local missions here. We today are actually helping people in over 40 countries and across the United States and so many different areas. So we're there involved in humanitarian events. So currently product has gone off to the Ukraine and some of the refugee camps on the borders of Ukraine. So Poland and Romania are a few. We're very much tied into some of the partnerships globally, such as Direct Relief, um, MAP International, Food for the Poor, the Red Cross. So we're heavily involved there. We're also been very, very much involved with Operation Gratitude, which is an arm that it's an organization run by ex-military to basically help all our military families, our military on overseas, deployed military, and making sure that they are taking care of connections. They do so many good things for them. One of the things that we do along with them is we actually ship our product out to so many of the deployed troops and families. Clearly, they need hydration, and they have this in the military, but they're really horrible, almost like salt pills and salt tablets. They're just awful. So we've been donating millions to our military all around just to make sure that those men and women are taken care of. And we have a really, really good relationship with them, as well as all our healthcare workers, frontline responders, firemen and firewomen who are out there doing amazing work. So just think about just so many different areas. And so we know that we can make an impact. We understand the level of impact. And the question is that how far are we willing to go? And it's been so front center of exactly who we are. It's an amazing experience because we're bringing people into Liquid IV as we grow, and we realize with growth comes more opportunity to help more, to be able to scale it and achieve even larger results. And we're very impact driven. So we're trying to figure out a way to understand how we can measure impact and then continue to find success, whether it's through community endeavors or looking even overseas and hyper focusing on specific areas that we can make more of an impact rather than it just suddenly gets lost in the halo effect that happens when you're just sending things for a good cause, but they don't really do much on its own. So this program is massive and growing, and I think it's really the heart and soul of who we are as a company. It always has been.
Yeah, I think it's a great company. I'm glad you were able to talk about it. But tell us now, Sean, I want you to tell me a little bit about what exactly you do for the company. And then I want you to go back in history and tell me how you acquired the skills that you have in order to be able to have the job that you have. So, what exactly is your job at Liquid IV?
Well,
And it's probably changing every day, isn't it?
it does change. Yeah. You know, it's a funny thing about joining a startup that becomes this much larger entity. But yeah, my current title, as I mentioned before, is I'm the vice president of Live Mission. And what is Live Mission? It's an interesting title to have. I find it's my favorite title for any job I've ever had, simply because I get to do what everybody else wants to do, which is to be able to give away and donate product over the seas and find funding. So I definitely head and develop our entire give back initiatives. My passion for sustainability and the planet and making true change has always been something I've embraced since I was a child. So to have the honor of actually leading that for the company and really aggressively pushing hard for big sustainable change through our packaging, through our supply chain, through how our ingredients are sourced, et cetera. So again, that's another piece of what I oversee and build. And then that third component, which is probably the big piece of my creative brain, is on innovation. So I've had the luxury, the pleasure, the privilege of developing all of Liquid IV's products. So everything that the consumer gets to experience, all those lovely flavors, all of that comes from my head and from my passion in terms of what I feel evokes a incredible fun consumer delight.
Hmm.
And, sometimes I like to play the Willy Wonka where you just try to be clever and fun and innovative in terms of what you're trying to bring to the market. But three of those different pillars of the business, and they're equally important to me. Again, I've had the pleasure of being able to lead and head um, for a long time. But I think going back, and I know you were asking, like, how did it come? How did it
Yeah.
come to be? How did I find Liquid IV? I, I think my story is probably similar to a lot of people's in that I think we just have these youthful ideas of we envision ourselves, or we have a vision of being something great.
Right.
And whether it's being a firefighter when you're like 7 years old, or being a doctor, or in my case, I wanted to be an actor, and you head for this path and you're walking down it, and things just don't seem to go the way you want it to go.
Right.
And one day you wake up and you find yourself, I've been at this job for X amount of years, or in this particular career, and it feels like it's a dead end. And that is what happened to me. I didn't find my calling. What I found was I was quite good at certain things. And I had a good sense of operations. I had a good head on my shoulders in terms of how I could organize a team. Um, and, but I was quite unhappy. I was unhappy because the job and the career path I had selected really, it was somewhat, I guess, soul crushing in a little bit. There was
Well, it
no,
wasn't real creative, was it?
it was far from being creative, and perhaps that's why I felt it was a bit soul crushing. You're right, Joni. It didn't nourish what I always craved. And yeah, coming from someone that wanted to be as a child an actor, I
Hmm.
I was definitely a very creative individual, and then suddenly finding myself in this non-creative world, it didn't nourish me. It didn't feed
Right.
me very well. So I decided to start my own business. And that's pretty much it. I just said, I'm going to start my own business. At least my parents were entrepreneurs. I said, I can do it too. So I started kind of building this idea and this business plan, et cetera. Meanwhile, I out of the blue, I got a little message from a friend of a friend who said, you got to meet these young guys. There's a couple I think that you would like. You seem to be on a path to do your own business. Love you to meet these other guys who have started a business, and I think you guys need to talk.
Hmm.
And it was a very random, out of the blue call. I met up with them in this small little shared office space in Marina Del Rey in California, and two young guys in their 20s, mid 20s, early 20s, who were very, very excited about their new business. They were passionate, they were excited, they had so much energy, and they had one little product, one little flavored little ingredient, and that was it. But they had this vision that was about changing the world, that they wanted to not just grow this business, but to actually have this greatest impact and do these wonderful things that only someone who is naive and youthful would ever even think about. Like
Sure.
there was nothing else in their mind but to create this magical business. And even the way they were trying to structure this business model, just think of an upside down NGO where
Hmm.
it's all about, but the funnel is basically, we want to change the planet, we want to help people in need, we want to have the best product. And then if we do all that, it's going to basically provide us all the funding for us to do it again and bigger and scale it. So
Right.
the profit was like the last piece. Everything else was the reason you do it. And so that's why I say it's that upside down NGO. Well, we will self-fund these ambitious, iconic goals, like this
Hmm.
inspirational idea. And so I thought, God, I love these guys. I could either go off and do this business by myself, my own idea, or I can
Hmm.
join them and be part of like a little group here that we all share this massive passion to be big change makers. So I
Right.
said, what the heck, I'm going to join these guys. I had to give the news to my wife that I'd give up a pretty big salary. I'd have to give up a lot of things to join a little startup that had little to no revenue,
Mhm.
and the high risk of most little companies that start out in this world. Only a certain small percentage actually make it through the first 5 years, if you're
Right.
lucky. But knowing all of that, is it worth it? And again, my mind was, of course, it's worth it, because you have to chase your passion.
Right.
You live one life. It would be such a shame if I didn't even try. So I was like, let's do it. And that time, my passion wasn't the product. It was simply, I was now part of something that I believed we could really manifest together and make a difference.
Right.
So that's kind of like how I started.
Mhm.
Um, Ironically, what was also funny is that my role was simple. They needed someone to run operations. They didn't have any SOPs, or they didn't no standard procedures. They didn't really have um, a lot of logistics involved. They didn't really have big manufacturing centers. There was nothing to scale. They didn't have anything more than one product. Um, and so I realized that I had to suddenly become an octopus of business. I had to touch and be part of a million different roles simultaneously, which is something that I tend to like to do anyway.
Right.
And there was a lot of learning. And I personally get excited when I almost feel like I have to start all over again. It's that
Mhm.
re-energized, really testing yourself. Um, what I don't know and what I do know, and where's that fine line. Um, and when you're with the right people, that little tiny, it was a nucleus of a culture that had a killer spirit. And if you're going to start a business, there's a couple things you need. You need to be hungry, but you also literally need to have that killer instinct.
Right.
And that killer instinct is, like, you can call it the Mamba mentality if you're really into Kobe Bryant and his books, or if you really want to feel like there is competition in life, no matter what you do, whatever your career path is. And if you're not hungry to beat your competition and to put as much space between you and them, then your life will be challenged.
Right.
There is no easy road or no easy path, but if you really truly are hungry and you truly believe in what you can do, and to really take ownership of your path, have that killer instinct, and surround yourself with people that do. It's that team model is what makes you great, not individually, but collectively. You can be unstoppable. And I was with two people who had as much of a killer instinct that I've always had. And so that made a pretty like a solid team. Uh, and that's just kind of like the backstory. It's like, I don't want to take you through everything, but really it
Sure.
came from nothing with one thing. And ultimately, how did I evolve throughout the company? Well, obviously we hired as we succeeded, bit by bit, selling more, getting more recognition in small ways. But the challenges were all over. We have a lot of guiding principles that we kept on establishing, which was, we have this one guiding principle called bluff, which basically means bottom line up front. So every time we had a conversation, get to the point. Don't waste any energy. Don't waste a lot of, and
Mhm.
by the way, it was hard for me because I talk a lot, but get to the point, keep it crisp, know what you're
Right.
talking about. We had another beautiful guiding principles called, the problem is the portal. And that basically means that we will always encounter problems. There will always be something that stops you.
Right.
But what makes you succeed is finding solutions. And sometimes the problem is the solution.
Yeah.
Just when you think you were going down the right path, you hit a problem. And that problem actually is what made you even bigger. An example of that, a really good example, is this is how we end up becoming a product that ended up being in a single serving stick.
Uh-huh.
We started off as a ready to drink in a bottle that became expensive and too heavy. And then we started selling in a pouch. It was basically a pouch and loose powder. When we got into the powder
Mhm.
market, loose powder in the pouch. But suddenly, all of our powder in these pouches before they even went into the stores started getting hard. In other
Oh.
words, all of the powder they started crystallizing. And so you
Mhm.
can imagine when you have a little moisture that touches things like sugar and salt, they become almost like rock.
Right.
And so we were like, oh no, everything, all our inventory is like just getting destroyed. We had to, it looked like the end of our entire business. We were
Mhm.
done. And we asked experts to come in and help. They were trying to solve this problem. We didn't know what it was, but pretty much that was going to be the end of the business. Um, and suddenly it was, well, if we put it in these sticks, it was just a random thing. We were working on this as an idea.
Mm.
We can now put individual sticks, which now they have an additional barrier
Oh.
that
Mhm.
protects it from moisture, oxidation, anything else from getting through. That solved the problem. So instead of having an open pouch where you open, you take a scoop and you pour it in, like you've seen those in like protein shakes and powders,
Mhm.
and oftentimes people like leave it open for great deals of time or they don't properly seal it,
Right.
which allows for moisture to get in. We solved that by having single servings. And that simple adjustment not only changed our business model and allowed us to stay in business and grow, but it actually changed the entire idea of powder as a category for beverage in the entire United States.
Oh. Hmm.
So today you will see massive, a lot more single serving sticks that have powder for a variety of different products, whether it's collagen or you name it.
Right.
Liquid IV was probably one of the inspirations for making that the new way of actually
Wow.
using that material.
Hmm.
And for us, it changed the whole business plan. It saved us and made us move on. And now that idea of single serving is very commonplace. It's very useful. It's easy to put in your purse or your bag or your pocket. So
Take a
think about
few.
transportation.
Yep. Mhm.
It's light, it's efficient. So for all of those reasons, this was not intentional. This
Wow.
came from a problem. And and it actually made us who we are today. So that's just an example of a guiding principle and how we applied it. But this is like the learnings. And so when you're hungry and you're moving and you're, part of the excitement of building these businesses and thinking is that you really stop for a moment and think and reevaluate, and learn from your mistakes and then just keep moving forward. Have a solution in mind and be very accepting to these type of issues. Um,
Yeah.
and they just create character and they build you and oftentimes they take you to a better place.
That's just awesome. How many employees do you have in the company?
Today, boy, we're hiring like ramp. I think we are just a little bit 110 people.
And where do you manufacture?
We have multiple manufacturing,
Okay.
but we're all U.S. In the United States. So all our manufacturing and all our facilities are in the U.S.
Yeah. Do you
So,
want to talk about what kinds of skills you look in people that you hire?
oh my goodness, that changes everywhere. So
Yeah.
we're growing. We're in the health and well-being or health and wellness categories. You can imagine we're a beverage. Um, so we've been hiring in so many of our categories from sales and accounting, but is also in R&D or we're doing a lot of R&D, a lot of innovation. So food scientists, nutritionists on those areas. Marketing is always growing. So obviously expertise in so many different areas of marketing, as you can imagine. Um, I mean, I don't have a list of what we need
Sure.
today, but just keep in mind, I think with every type of success and the growth of a business, you're just filling needed new spots,
Right.
part of the growth.
Let me ask a different way because it,
Mm.
it makes me think more of you. Do you have certain soft skills that you look for in people when you hire for your company?
Yeah. So one thing that is the trigger for anybody joining Liquid IV is you have to have passion. I know it seems really ridiculous and redundant. When I look at a resume, and I think everybody does, is we want to know the person. Um, and you need to have that certain there's a certain that we look for at Liquid IV. Since we are very much of a passion driven business, a purpose driven business, if you don't already have this lifestyle that you believe in, that touches on things of give back and sustainability, and that's not just like you care about the idea of this well-being model, then it's not for you. So you need to somewhat live it for you to jump into what we do, because this is the culture. Our culture is very, very specific. We live and breathe what we preach and what we do. It is not a job, it's a vocation. I tell everybody that comes to Liquid IV, if you're lucky enough to get an interview, by the way, if you get the luck to come here and interview with us, this is kind of the way station for those seeking to have their legacy made.
Oh,
The jobs are so specific that it requires you as an individual taking on that responsibility to be part of the success at Liquid IV. You're not have your job is really essential, and you are playing a big role in the success of this company, a very big role. And it is a beautiful model. It allows for people to get to be the person they always wanted to be. I'm only interested in people who are willing to be themselves. So you can imagine personalities. I love the idea that this is a mesh of just hungry, but really collective, collaborative people that we're all lined and fine-tuned into like this goal. We're very much goal oriented. We have an objective. We look and seek and hunger for results. We measure ourselves. Another big piece of it is about empowerment. Very important to empower everybody. They're playing a big role, and we empower you to be your best. So come here and ready to do. And we love this idea of open doors, open collaboration. It's an extremely beautiful kind of efficient model that allows for both creative, but it also establishes that we challenge each other, not to be mediocre, but to be the best.
that's wonderful.
You should always do that at all times. And it is an environment that really is inclusive and not exclusive. So it's so important that when you bring someone into this, you can call it a family, you can call it a culture, that they're not going to bring anything negative to it. It's a very positive, reinforced, but I don't want to say soft. I want to say we're very, very I think collectively we are one of the most competitive, not against each other,
Right.
but against the rest of everybody else out there. We love what we do, and we are not going to let anything slow us down to accomplish our goals. And when your goal is to make this a better planet, to have better packaging, to make sure that our product is meeting the highest level of quality, that we want to do the best, and we will have impact. And it's so important that we do that. If you don't have the right people pushing to actually achieve these high, lofty, aspirational goals, then we're never going to do anything. It will
Right.
never happen. So you
Right.
have to do that if you really want to make change in this world. So you want those change makers with you.
I love everything I hear about this company. I love what you do. I love the product. I've certainly used it myself. When you're looking for taste testers, give me a call because I
Yeah.
think it's a great company and a great product. So
Fantastic.
Sean, I really
Thank you.
appreciate you talking to us today. It's Sean Lavin with Liquid IV, and again, I'm Joni with Looking at Careers with Joni. If you like this video, make sure you click like down below and subscribe to our channel. Thanks, Sean, and
Thank
thanks for
you.
watching.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.